In 2002, B&M debuted yet another incredible new innovation with the flying coaster. Now, this was not the first time we had seen a flying coaster. We had Vekoma's model, like you had Stealth at California's Great America, which opened a couple years prior. But B&M really perfected that design, made it much more smoother, more comfortable for riders, and it came in the form of Air at Alton Towers. Of course, this is not the first time we've seen Alton Towers debut a world's first. Also from B&M, just a couple years prior to Air, we had the first ever dive coaster with Oblivion. Nemesis might not have been the first ever B&M invert, but what they did with that ride was pretty incredible. And Air was a big deal when it came out, and since then we have seen many B&M flying coasters appear up around the world. And I think it's fascinating to see the progression of this ride model over time. Rides like Flying Dinosaur at Universal Studios Japan or Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain throw so much positive G-force at you. Yes, you get that flying sensation, but they are intense rides, more so focused on flipping you upside down in these crazy maneuvers. If you take it all the way back to Air, it was almost solely focused on that flying sensation. We as humans always dream about taking to the skies, flying through the air. Here at Alton Towers, you can do just that, and it's a really good ride experience. Now, of course, the ride is no longer known as Air. In 2016, the park did a large renovation on the attraction, changed its name to Galactica, gave it more of a space theme, and with that transformation, they also put VR headsets on it. That was during a brief period of time when VR was in. They were trying something new on this, and actually, the first time I went to Alton Towers, I did get to experience Galactica with the VR headset. It was removed the very next season, so I was glad I got to experience that. But nothing's gonna beat that just true classic roller coaster experience. As much as it was neat to fly through space, it was a huge strain on operations. Flying coasters already have longer load times than normal. So you throw in VR headsets, some of which can make riders nauseous, especially when they aren't working properly, so it makes sense that it was short-lived. But if you're familiar with Alton Towers and its history, then you know that just the fact that this roller coaster exists is pretty dang impressive. They have a lot of restrictions that they have to get past in order to make a big thrill ride happen. The biggest stipulation being they can't build above the tree line. So how do you build a thrilling roller coaster when your max height is only 66 feet? Well, you have to get creative. In this instance, they dug down. Galactica literally rises up out of the ground to ascend up your lift hill. We'll pass through some tunnels or trenches and just stays very low to the ground. They had to come up with some maneuvers that you don't really find on other attractions in order for the ride vehicle to maintain its speed, continuing through this very short layout. You're looking at 2,756 feet of track, so the ride experience isn't very long, but it's okay. The ride really works for what it is. So let's walk through this ride moment by moment. Starting first with when you enter the line, most of your queue is going to be outdoors. You're literally walking among the coaster tracks, seeing the ride fly all around you. When you enter the station, you'll see more of that space exploration. As riders, you're venturing off to explore another galaxy. One thing I like is at the exit, they have a bunch of different locations that you can go visit. Almost like it's a tourism company. I almost get like Star Tours vibes. It's not heavily themed. During the ride experience, pretty much all you get is that one portal at the bottom of the first drop. The station has a nice vibe to it, but Alton Towers definitely has some better themed rides in the park, including the B&M right next door. So when you're on the loading platform, there are two different sides to this station, so it can load two different trains at once. So you can operate Galactica with 3 trains, 7 rows each. And I mentioned how flying coasters can have slower operations. My experience at Galactica was overall pretty positive. I saw that they were sending trains out at a pretty quick pace. Like as soon as one hit the brick run, the next one is already going up the lift hill. They seemed well staffed. The ride crews were being safe and efficient. You rotate up into that flying position and off you go. You have a short climb up to the top. I like as you stare down to the ground, if you look to your left, you see the final turn and brake run for Nemesis. That's gotta be a really cool view if you get them synced up at the same time. You reach the peak, drop off, and swoop to the right. If you're riding in the back row, you get a little pop of airtime as you're dropping down through this main portal. Your whole body is like lifted up. It's almost like a smaller hint of what you experience on Fly at Phantasialand. And actually, I'm going to come back to that attraction later because that's really like the modern day equivalent of a flying coaster, so it's cool to contrast them. But we don't often associate flying coasters with having airtime, but going all the way back to 2002, Galactica was doing it. You just got to be paying attention. At the bottom of this drop, you reach your max speed of 47 miles per hour. You pass through the portal filled with smoke and immediately rotate into your first of 2 inversions. And this is easily the best part of the ride. You have a fly to lie maneuver. So you start where you're facing in your standard flying position. You rotate onto your back and you stay there and you pass through a massive turn on your back. So you're staring up at the sky and then you roll back over to face the ground as you drop underneath the pathway. The best comparison I can make to this maneuver is of a pretzel loop, which you get on much newer flying coasters. That's a more forceful experience. This was like the pretzel loop before pretzel loops were even a thing. It gives you that sensation of being on your back without the insane positive G-forces that you get on a pretzel loop, which some people may like, some people may not. I like pretzel loops, but they can be a lot. Especially I think about the one on like Tatsu. That thing is like borderline terrifying. It's so massive. Your body's just like forced up against the back of the seat. All these G's thrown upon your body. And this stays graceful. It's a weird moment, but it's a lot of fun. I totally dug it. So you pass under this tunnel, you turn to the right, fly over the pathway, nice panoramic turn. Now you're back near that fly to lie maneuver and you go into your second inversion. This one being a pretty standard inline twist. Again, stays graceful. It's a nice contrast from the inversions you get on Nemesis, because when you ride that ride, those inversions just whip you super hard, really forceful. This offers a nice complement. Then you bank to the left, you have another little dip. This is your second moment where you get like a hint of airtime. It's like a bunny hill, except you're under the track instead of over it. And then you pass through your final turn, and that's the brake run. When you think about that Galactica or Air was designed to just be a really cool sensation for riders to feel like they're flying, they did a fantastic job. And that's why I'm going to bring up Fly again. This is the next generation of flying coaster. It also isn't focused on flipping riders head over heels, it's just to replicate that sensation of flight in the best possible way, and it makes for one of the coolest ride experiences out there. Galactica doesn't have the crazy theming that Fly has, or the innovative loading mechanism, so while it's not hard to go out and find a better flying coaster out there, it doesn't mean that Galactica is any less enjoyable. Especially when you think about that in the UK, this is the primary place that you can experience a flying coaster, unless you count Hero at Flamingo Land, which I feel like is not an accurate representation of what a flying coaster can be. So it explains why this ride is a big crowd pleaser. It always has a long line. So for Galactica's final score, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Go out there, give it a ride. I think you'll have a good time, and even if you've experienced much more intense flying coasters, you'll still be able to enjoy this ride for what it is. So let me know down in the comments below if you've experienced Galactica at Alton Towers, what you think of it, if you agree with the points that I brought up, if you think there's anything I missed, be sure to post all that down below. And stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.